The first time anyone noticed something was wrong with the new teacher, it was already too late. By then, another empty desk had appeared in the classroom. Another grieving family had draped black cloth across their doorway, and another whispered rumor had begun spreading through the dusty streets of the village. Yet no one dared connect those tragedies to the quiet woman who stood before the chalkboard every morning, calmly writing lessons in flawless handwriting. While her students watched in complete silence, she never raised her voice. She never punished anyone harshly. She smiled rarely, but when she did, it carried a strange sadness that made even the bravest children look away. Her name was Miriam, and within weeks of arriving at Andalus Secondary School, everyone would know it. Not because she was cruel, but because she always seemed to know exactly which students would never return. The village of Adalu rested between rolling hills where thick forests met endless stretches of farmland. It was the kind of place where everyone knew each other's names, birthdays, and family histories. News traveled faster than the wind, and secrets rarely survived more than a day. The school stood at the highest point in the village, its weathered brick walls overlooking clusters of tin-roofed homes below. Every morning, children climbed the hill, laughing, racing each other with warm backpacks bouncing against their shoulders. Every afternoon, they descended together, filling the valley with songs and stories. When the previous literature teacher retired after nearly 40 years, the villagers expected someone young and energetic to replace him. Instead, a woman in her early 40s stepped off the morning bus, carrying only 2 suitcases and a small wooden box wrapped carefully in faded cloth. No one knew where she had come from. No one knew whether she had family. Even the headmaster admitted that the education office had recommended her without much explanation. "She has excellent credentials," he told the curious staff. "That is all we need to know." The other teachers accepted his answer. The students did not. Children notice things adults often ignore. They noticed that she never ate lunch with the staff. They noticed she arrived before sunrise and left only after everyone else had gone home. Most of all, they noticed her eyes. They were gentle, almost painfully kind, yet carried the weight of someone who had spent years watching storms no one else could see. Among her students was 16-year-old Daniel, the son of the village carpenter. Unlike many of his classmates, Daniel possessed an endless curiosity that often led him into trouble. He questioned everything, challenged every explanation, and refused to accept mysteries simply because adults declared them possible to understand. His closest friend Isaac often laughed at him. One day, Isaac teased as they walked to school together. "Your curiosity will get you eaten by a lion." Neil grinned. "Only if I ask the lion too many questions." Isaac rolled his eyes. "You probably would." Their laughter echoed across the dirt road, unaware that those ordinary moments would soon become memories neither of them could ever relive. On Miriam's first day, she asked each student to introduce themselves. It was a simple exercise, one every new teacher used. One by one, they stood, announced their names, and shared their dreams. "I want to become a doctor. I want to build roads. I want to own a farm. I want to be a pilot." Miriam listened patiently to every answer, offering a warm nod each time. Then Isaac stood. "My name is Isaac Moyle," he said proudly. "One day, I'll become a police officer because I want everyone in this village to feel safe." The classroom remained quiet. Miriam looked directly into his eyes. For just a moment, something changed. The color drained from her face. Her fingers tightened around the chalk until it snapped in half. The room froze. Then, almost as quickly as it had happened, She smiled. A noble dream, she whispered. But Daniel noticed something no one else did. She looked as though she were trying not to cry. The lesson continued without interruption. Yet several times that morning, Daniel caught her staring toward Isaac's desk with the expression of someone silently saying goodbye. After school, Daniel mentioned it. "You look strange when Isaac introduced himself." She stopped arranging books on her desk. "Did I? You seem frightened." She forced another smile. "Sometimes people remind us of memories we wish we could forget." "What memories?" She hesitated. "The kind every person carries alone." Her answer solved nothing. If anything, it created even more questions. 3 days later, the village woke to heartbreaking news. Isaac had been struck by lightning while helping his father herd cattle during an unexpected evening storm. He died before anyone could carry him to the clinic. The entire village mourned. Teachers attended the funeral alongside hundreds of grieving neighbors. Daniel stood beside Isaac's coffin, unable to understand how someone laughing with him only yesterday could now lie perfectly still beneath polished wood. As mourners slowly dispersed, Daniel noticed Miriam standing far from the crowd beneath a large acacia tree. She wasn't surprised. She wasn't confused. She simply closed her eyes as though a painful certainty had finally become reality. When she realized Daniel was watching, she quietly turned away. That image stayed with him. Something about it refused to leave his mind. The following Monday, Isaac's desk remained empty. A fresh bouquet of wildflowers rested upon it. Before beginning class, Miriam stared at the empty chair for several long seconds. Finally, she spoke. "Life is precious because none of us know how long we are given." The students assumed she was comforting them. Only Daniel heard something different. She spoke those words as though they were not advice. They were experience. Weeks passed. The village slowly recovered from its grief. Children laughed again. Even Daniel convinced himself he had imagined everything, until another introduction changed everything. A transfer student named Grace joined the class from a neighboring district after her parents relocated for work. She was shy but intelligent, speaking softly while introducing herself. "My favorite subject is science." Miriam smiled. Then her smile disappeared. Again, the exact same expression, the same pale face, the same tightening hands, the same unbearable sadness. This time, Daniel watched every detail. It wasn't coincidence. It couldn't be. After class, he confronted her. "You knew something." "I don't know what you mean." "You looked at Grace exactly the way you looked at Isaac." Silence filled the empty classroom. Outside, children played football, their distant cheers drifting through open windows. Inside, neither moved. Daniel drew near are questions that become burdens once answered. "I don't care." "You would." "No." She looked directly into his eyes. "If someone told you the day your mother would die, would your love save her?" Daniel said nothing. "If someone warned your father about every danger awaiting him, could he escape all of them?" Still, he remained silent. "There are truths," she whispered, "that only create suffering." Then she picked up her bag and walked away. Daniel stood frozen. She hadn't denied knowing. She had avoided answering. There was a difference. From that day forward, he began watching her more carefully than ever before. He noticed small things. Sometimes she quietly crossed out a student's name while reviewing attendance, only to rewrite it moments later with trembling hands. Sometimes she lingered beside certain desks longer than others, offering unexpected encouragement, almost as if trying to give those children one final happy memory. Most disturbing of all, She often watched the classroom door after the final bell with the expression of someone silently praying every child would return the next morning. Then came Friday. Grace never arrived. The principal announced that she had been involved in a terrible traffic accident while traveling with her parents before sunrise. Survived, her parents did not. The classroom fell into stunned silence. Grace would not return for many weeks. Daniel slowly turned toward Miriam. She had already lowered her head, not in surprise, in grief. The same grief of someone mourning a loss before anyone else even knew it existed. That afternoon, Daniel climbed the hill behind the school instead of walking home. From there, he could see the entire village spread beneath the setting sun. He expected to be alone. Instead, he found Miriam standing near the edge of the cliff, holding the same small wooden box she had carried on the day she arrived. She hadn't noticed him. Carefully, almost reverently, she opened the lid. Inside lay dozens of neatly folded pieces of paper. One by one, she unfolded them. Daniel could not read the words from where he stood, but he watched something even stranger. After reading each note, she whispered a student's name, then another, then another. With every name, tears slowly rolled down her cheeks. And then the wind shifted. One folded paper slipped from her hands. It tumbled across the grass until it stopped only a few feet from where Daniel was hiding. He picked it up before she noticed. Written in careful black ink were only 7 chilling words. Daniel Muel. Autumn. Falls from the old bridge. His heart stopped. Slowly he lifted his eyes toward the teacher. For the first time since she arrived in Adalu, Miriam looked directly at him, not with surprise, nor with anger, but with the heartbreaking expression of someone who had hoped he would never discover the truth. Daniel's hands trembled as he stared at the paper. The words seemed to burn into his mind. He read them again, hoping they would somehow change. Daniel Muel. Autumn. Falls from the old bridge. When he looked up, Miriam had already closed the wooden box. She didn't run. She didn't try to take the paper back. Instead, she stood in silence, her eyes filled with a sorrow that frightened him more than the message itself. "You wrote this," Daniel whispered. "No. Then who did?" "I wish I knew." He stepped backward. "You knew about Isaac." She lowered her head. "Yes. You knew about Grace." "Yes. And now you're telling me I'm going to die." "I am telling you what I was shown." Daniel crumpled the paper in his fist. "I don't believe you. I pray that you never do." Without another word, he turned and ran down the hill, his heartbeat drowning out every sound around him. That night, he barely slept. Every creak of the house made him think of death. Every dream ended with him falling into dark water beneath the old bridge on the edge of the village. The next morning, he avoided Miriam completely, but avoiding her didn't stop the fear. Soon, he began noticing things he had ignored before. The bridge was old. Raw wooden planks had started to rot after years of rain. Children crossed it every day without thinking. Daniel refused to go near it. His friends laughed when he insisted on taking the longer path home. "Since when are you afraid of bridges?" one of them asked. "I'm just being careful." They shrugged, thinking nothing of it. Days turned into weeks. Autumn slowly approached. The leaves on the trees began changing color, and with every passing morning, Daniel's anxiety grew stronger. Finally, he confronted Miriam. After class, "If I never cross that bridge," he demanded, "then I won't die there." She looked at him for a long moment. "I've asked myself that same question hundreds of times, and I have warned people before." His heart skipped. "What happened?" "They changed their plans. They stayed home. They took different roads." She paused. And somehow, fate still found them. Daniel felt the ground beneath him disappear. So there's no escape. I don't know. Her voice cracked for the first time. But if there is, I've never been able to find it. Before Daniel could ask another question, the school bell echoed through the empty hallway. Miriam picked up the wooden box and walked away, leaving him with a terrifying thought. Maybe the predictions weren't curses. Maybe they were simply truths waiting for their moment. And if that was true, Daniel had only one chance left. He had to discover where Miriam's mysterious list had come from before autumn arrived. Daniel spent every spare moment searching for answers. One evening, after everyone had left the school, he quietly entered Miriam's classroom. He wasn't looking for exam papers or lesson plans. He was looking for the wooden box. It wasn't there. As he turned to leave, Miriam's voice broke the silence. You were always going to come. Daniel froze. I need the truth, he said. Where do those names come from? She slowly walked to her desk and unlocked a small drawer. From inside, she removed an old leather journal, its pages worn with age. It belonged to my father, she said. He was a teacher too. She opened the journal. Every page contained names, dates, and impossible predictions. He received them from someone before him. I received them after he died. Daniel looked through the pages. Every prediction had come true. Then why keep teaching? He asked. A tear rolled down her cheek. Because if these children must face their final days, I want someone to see them with kindness instead of taking them for granted. Daniel lowered his eyes. For the first time, he understood the sadness she carried. Every day, autumn arrived. The village gathered for its annual harvest festival. Children laughed as they crossed the old bridge toward the celebration. Daniel stopped at the edge. The prediction echoed in his mind. He stepped back. At that exact moment, a little boy chasing a ball slipped between the broken wooden rails. Without thinking, Daniel lunged forward, grabbed the child by the arm, and pulled him to safety. The bridge groaned beneath their weight. Then it collapsed. Daniel managed to throw the boy onto solid ground, but the falling timber swept him into the river below. Hours later, rescuers found him alive, clinging to a tree branch downstream. He had fallen from the old bridge. The prediction had come true, but death had not. When Daniel returned to school weeks later, Miriam smiled for the first time. You changed something, she whispered. She opened the leather journal. The page bearing Daniel's name had vanished. For the first time in generations, fate had been rewritten, not through fear, but through courage and the choice to save another life. From that day forward, Miriam no longer looked at her students with quiet despair. She looked at them with hope, believing that even the darkest future was never beyond the reach of compassion.